Sales are down, inventory is tight, but Minneapolis just hit record high prices for the 14th year in a row. Buyers think they have leverage, sellers think it's still 2021, and both are wrong. Today, I'm breaking down why this market feels completely abnormal and what's actually happening behind the numbers. All right, so here's what feels kind of strange right now, and honestly, it throws a lot of people off. Home sales across the Twin Cities are still really low compared to past years, more in line with how things were before 2020. Statewide and metro reports show that closed sales in 2025 only went up a little from 2024, and they're still below what most people would call normal years before 2020. But here's the weird part. The Twin Cities Metro just hit a new record median price in 2025, landing in the high 300s to around the low 400s. That's about 14 straight years of prices going up. You've got record prices, but not a lot of homes actually selling, so it feels backwards. Now, when you zoom in on Minneapolis itself, it's more mixed. Latest data show the citywide median in the low 300,000s, down a few percent from last year. But when you break it down by neighborhood, places like Northeast and Southwest are still pushing into the mid 300s up to the mid 500s, and those are up from last year. So prices aren't exploding as they did in 2021, but they are definitely not crashing either. What's really happening is that prices have been climbing for a long time, and a lot of the homes selling right now are higher end or move up homes. So the overall price number stays high, even though fewer homes are closing. I know that sounds confusing, and that's exactly why this market is creating totally different expectations for buyers and sellers. I'll break that down in a minute, so stick with me. Now, here's what I'm actually seeing out there. Prices feel flatter than they used to, mostly because not everything is getting 10 offers anymore. Even when homes do get multiple offers, they're not going $25,000, $30,000, $40,000 over like they did a couple of years ago. Now we're seeing more like $10,000 to $20,000 over asking. So you've got fewer sales happening, but prices are still holding up, and that tells you something big. This market isn't being pushed by a flood of buyers, but being shaped by how few homes are available, and that supply side is where things start to really get interesting. Now listen, if you're trying to figure out whether this is actually a good time to buy or sell in Minneapolis, this is the stuff I deal with every single day. I'm working with buyers and sellers right now who are trying to make sense of this exact market. So if you want to talk about it, shoot me an email. All my info is in the description. All right, let's get back to it. So let's talk about inventory, because this is really the base of everything that feels weird right now. The Twin Cities are still sitting in what you'd call seller territory. Last year, we had 2 to 2.5 months of supply. A balanced market would feel more like 4 to 6 months. So yes, we had more listings in 2025 compared to 2024, but we're still nowhere near what most people would call normal. Even with that bump, year-end inventory was still lower than normal and well below where we were in 2019. So buyers have a little more breathing room than a couple of years ago, but not enough to flip the advantage completely their way. That's why it feels like it should be easier, but it's really not. Now here's a local pattern you need to know if you're looking in Minneapolis, which I see every year. Once September hits and school starts, listings start slowing down, and that runs all the way through February, usually until about the week after the Super Bowl. People just don't want to move in the cold and snow, and sellers basically hibernate. Nobody wants strangers walking around their house when it's freezing and there's snow everywhere. During that period, buyers can actually get a better deal because there's less competition. But inventory is super tight, so basically there just aren't too many homes to choose from. Yes, it can work in your favor, but you have limited options. Now, once late January hits and we move past the Super Bowl, things shift. The holidays are over, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's all done. A lot of people take those quick winter trips to Florida or Tennessee to escape the cold. After that, they start thinking about moving, so listings pick up, buyers come off the sidelines, activity ramps up, and that's the window we're moving into right now. In the past, this pattern made things pretty predictable. If you got it, you could time your move around it. But what's happening right now is more than just seasons. There's a bigger issue holding inventory down all year long. So let's talk about what's really driving that. All right, this right here is probably the biggest thing twisting the market right now, and it's affecting way more people than most realize. It's called the lock-in effect, where a lot of homeowners locked in rates at 2 to 3% back in 2020 and 2021. Now rates are closer to 5.5% to 6%, so if they sell and buy again, their payment jumps way up, even if the new house is only a little nicer. I see this all the time with clients. People I helped back in 2020, 2021 want to move up, but their income hasn't kept up pace with prices and rates, and they feel stuck. Here's how it plays out in real life. Someone bought in 2020 or 2021 in the mid 300s at around 3%. Today, that house might sell in the mid 400s. On paper, that looks great. And maybe they walk away with around $100,000, which sounds like a win. But now they want to buy a $600,000 to $650,000 home at today's rates. Even if they put that $100,000 down, the monthly payment can get so high that it just doesn't work and the numbers don't line up, so they stay put, even if they really want to move. That's the bottleneck where now listings improved a bit in 2025, but we still have fewer homes for sale than we did before the pandemic. Later on, I'm going to show you exactly who's getting squeezed the hardest right now and why that shift is quietly changing the whole market, so don't go anywhere. Now, a big group of move-up sellers just aren't selling, and that keeps inventory tight and prices higher than people expect, so everything feels kind of stuck. This market isn't being held up by wild demand like 2021, but being held up by homeowners locked into cheap loans. That keeps supply low, that keeps prices from falling much, and creates all the mixed signals you're hearing. And depending on the neighborhood and the type of home, things can look very different right now. So let's talk about the mixed signals, because this is where people start feeling that they're losing their minds. You've got one house that sells in 48 hours with multiple offers, and then 3 doors down, a similar house sits for 6 weeks and has to cut the price. That's Minneapolis right now, and it's confusing everybody. When you zoom out and look at the metro numbers, it looks kind of balanced but strange. Median prices are still creeping up into record territory, but at the same time, average days on market have stretched into the upper 50s. So homes are taking longer than they did during the 2021 frenzy, but they're still selling faster than what used to be normal. Most homes are still going under contract in about 3 to 4 weeks, especially in that mid 300s to mid 400,000 range. Compared to cities where homes are in the 600s, 700s, or even 800s, we're still relatively affordable, and that keeps things moving. But the experience feels wildly inconsistent. Some homes in Minneapolis are still getting about 2 offers and going under contract a little over a month. But when you break it down by area, it changes fast. Northeast and Southwest are still very competitive, with prices running from the mid 300s up into mid 500, and homes selling quickly, while central Minneapolis is much slower, with prices in the low to mid 300,000s and longer time on market. So you've got parts of the city that feel hot and others that feel stuck, and you can't just go by the neighborhood name anymore. Here's what I'm seeing. Clean, well-priced homes in good pockets can still get multiple offers and sell $10,000 to $20,000 over list. But homes that feel a little dated or are priced too high will sit for 3 to 4 weeks or more and may need price cuts. Right now, it really does depend on the house and the street, because the market feels hot and cold at the same time. So you can't rely on generic advice or big metro stats anymore. One house gets multiple offers while the neighbor's doesn't. And sometimes it really does come down to the little things. Maybe the house is cleaner, the backyard shows better, maybe the finishes feel just a bit nicer. And right now, those small differences carry a lot more weight than they used to. A few years ago, buyers brushed that off, but now those details can make or break a deal. At the same time, some Minneapolis submarkets are flat or even slightly down on price, while the broader Twin Cities metro keeps hitting record medians. That's why it feels like the numbers don't match what you're actually seeing. And that leads us into who's actually getting left behind in all of this. So when you look at who's feeling this the most, it's first-time buyers. The statewide numbers show that sales under the low 300,000s actually dropped in 2025. And at the same time, sales over 1 million jumped more than 20%. So more high-end homes are selling, fewer entry-level homes are selling, and that alone pushes the median price up. On paper, it looks like everything is fine, but what's really happening is that the lower end of the market is getting squeezed, while the higher end keeps moving. Affordability has gotten tougher with prices going up, rates say in the mid 5s to 6s. That combination keeps a lot of money out of reach for some buyers. It is a lot harder if you're a single earner, depending on your income. If you're in that $60,000 to $70,000 range, that's where it gets tricky, because now you might be going up against a dual income household where both people are making $60,000 or $70,000. So they can just afford more, right? And they usually have more cash to work with too. That's why a lot of single income buyers are feeling squeezed right now. In a minute, I'm gonna break down what 2026 is really shaping up to look like, so you know exactly how to move and don't get caught off guard. Stay with me. Now, the move-up buyers, yes, they've got more equity to work with, but they're not just cruising either. You might have $100,000 on paper, and that sounds amazing. But because of that lock-in effect we talked about, the numbers still might not work on the next house. And the payment jump is real. So even the buyers who look totally fine on paper are sitting there thinking, this just doesn't make sense. And instead of forcing it, they're just staying put for now. That's why generic advice doesn't work the way it used to. And that's really at the heart of why this market feels so weird. Now here's why this whole thing feels so abnormal. If you're confused or frustrated, you're not alone. On paper, the Twin Cities still looks like a seller's market, where inventory is low and prices are near record highs. But then you turn on the news and you hear about markets cooling off or crashing. So buyers walk in thinking they've got all this leverage until they realize they don't. They hear things have slowed down, but then they still have to write a strong offer to win the right house, and that doesn't match what they thought a slower market would be. So there's this tension. Buyers want more negotiating power than they actually have, but the truth is, buyers still have to compete, although it's not as crazy as it used to be back in 2021. There's kind of like this middle ground of like, yes, you have to compete, but you might not have to lose your mind, as you heard about a couple of years ago from a buyer's perspective. Sometimes you gotta move fast and be sharp, and other times you actually have room to breathe. And look, as your agent, I wanna go to bat for you. I wanna negotiate the price down, get you some closing cost cover, keep your inspection in, all of that. That's literally my job. But with some houses, you just can't do that since the competition is still there. And if you ask for too much, you're going to lose it. So there's this weird middle ground right now where I can fight for you on some homes, and with others, the smart move is actually to come in strong from the start and knowing which situation you're walking into before you make an offer. That's exactly why you need an experienced agent who knows this market. And on the flip side, a lot of sellers are still thinking it's 2021. Back then, you could list high, skip most of the prep, snap a few photos, throw it online, and you'd still get multiple offers. That's not really how it works anymore. Here's what I've seen with my own listings. Some homes just haven't gone up in value as much as the owner thinks. Maybe during COVID, there wasn't much traffic on the street, but now people are back at work and that street is busier, and that changes how buyers feel about it. Or maybe when they bought in 2021, they overlooked lower ceilings, a split entry, and a few rough edges. They were locking in a rate of about 2 or 3%, so they were willing to look past the scuff trim or drywall that needed work. Now the buyer is coming in, looking at a 5 to 6% rate, and they care about all of that. So sellers are sitting there wondering why this isn't selling if there were multiple offers when they bought it. Well, the answer is pretty simpler. Buyers are more selective now. That's why it feels abnormal. You might have to compete or you might not. You might get multiple offers or you might not. It really does come down to the house. And once you understand why that's happening, you can make smarter moves. Here's the bottom line. Minneapolis is not crashing, but it's also not normal. And that difference matters if you're trying to make a smart move in 2026. If you get this right, you can find really good opportunities. But if you want some big reset, you probably keep waiting. Most people across Minnesota expect 2026 to be stronger than 2024 and 2025 when it comes to demand, and the big reason is this. A lot of buyers have been sitting on the sidelines waiting for rates to drop, and rates came down a little last year, but not the huge drop people hoped for. Now that 5.5% to 6% feels like the new normal. Buyers are starting to accept it. I'm seeing that shift with my own clients. People are saying, okay, if this is the rate, then I need to make it work. I don't see 2021 coming back, but I do think 2026 will feel stronger than last year because a lot of buyers were just waiting. Now here's the key part. Prices right now are being supported more by low supply than crazy demand. As long as inventory stays around 2 to 2.5 months, it's hard to see a big crash, especially in the most desirable neighborhoods. So here's what I think 2026 is gonna look like. There'll probably be a few more listings as some sellers finally stop waiting for rates to drop. And you'll see gradual price movement, maybe mid-single digit gains or flat to modest growth in that mid-300s to mid-400s range across much of the metro. You'll also see some softer pockets in parts of the urban core, and there'll continue to be a clear split in the market. You'll notice that clean, well-priced, move-in ready homes still get strong interest, while dated or overpriced homes sit longer and end up needing price cuts. So again, Minneapolis isn't crashing, but it's not normal either. What both buyers and sellers need to do is let go of that 2021 mindset. That shift is what's creating the confusion, but it's also where the opportunity is. And once you understand that, you can move a lot smarter. So that gap between what people think is happening and what's actually happening is where mistakes get made. But it's also where the opportunities are. The buyers and sellers who win right now are the ones who stop waiting for things to feel normal again and start making decisions based on the market that actually exists today. If you're thinking about buying or selling in the Minneapolis area this year and you want real clarity on what's happening in your price range and your neighborhood, shoot me an email today. I'm working with clients making these exact calls every day. And check out the video I've linked here about the 7 types of homes in Minnesota that will drain your wallet. You'll definitely want to watch that before you start touring homes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.